Can you spot the hidden pattern behind gold's price swings? Opportunity to get rich by investing in gold. Fortune telling welcomes you all. Many people are not interested in politics because they think it is too complicated and irrelevant to them. But I ask you, does making money matter to you? Every money-making opportunity depends on whether you can see the big picture and then act with the flow of events. So listen carefully. This is really very simple. In the past, we did not dare to say the three words, Dedollarization, out loud. Because everyone knew that countries that opposed the hegemony of the dollar did not have a good ending. For example, Japan was in the lost decade for 30 years and has yet to recover. Greece even went bankrupt. How many countries have been deceived in love like that but still accept it? The tricks of these capitalists are like shearing the 9 feathers. They always use the same trick. The process is very simple. Let's look back at 2020. When the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, the U.S. Federal Reserve capitalists claimed that the economy is in trouble and needs stimulation. So they started printing money. When money floods the market, the value of currency falls and, at the same time, interest rates or borrowing costs also fall sharply, making it easier to borrow money. At this time, large corporations, large banks and even governments of countries are rushing to borrow money to invest and do business. Huge amounts of dollars flow into the market. Prices skyrocket, leading to inflation. Stocks, cryptocurrencies, even things like NFTs, which are just virtual paintings, also increase in price, like crazy. Countries like Vietnam then benefited for a short time because of the flow of money from the US. But when the wool had grown enough and the economy entered the bubble phase, the Fed immediately announced that it would stop pumping money in 2022. They used the pretext of fighting inflation to raise interest rates. This means they want to encourage people to stop investing, stop doing business and instead deposit their money in US banks to earn interest. At that point, people holding stocks, Bitcoin or other investment assets around the world would be forced to sell to keep dollars in their bank accounts. As a result, the stock market crashed and corporate assets plummeted. Not only that, when the dollar appreciates, other countries' assets become cheap compared to this currency. At that time, American capitalists will use the higher value of dollars to buy back assets of other countries at cheap prices. This is how they use the financial cycle to capture global resources. Did you notice? Every time the Fed raises interest rates within just 6 months to 1 year, American capitalists have quietly bought up assets of other countries. Meanwhile, financial experts in your country warn that the real estate market will collapse. Stocks will plummet and advise you to sell all your assets and keep cash. As a result, history repeats itself, with the average person selling when prices fall and buying when prices rise and getting ripped off every time. That is why some countries have thought, if, in the end, our people's assets are all taken over by American capitalists and the money we make ends up in their pockets, why don't we stand up against it? That is why you hear a lot of countries like China, Russia, Argentina, India, Brazil declaring not to use dollars in transactions anymore. At the same time, many central banks are quietly accumulating large amounts of gold, pushing gold prices up rapidly. I have said before that I would buy gold not for investment purposes, but as a hedge against financial crises and wars. But recently I have found that gold also has great speculative value. For the average person, this could be a life-changing opportunity and, best of all, the rules of this game are easy to grasp. I spent a lot of time researching and creating this video to take you on a journey of thought. If you don't support me with a simple like, then no one will be sharing these things anymore. My channel specializes in sharing investment and business thinking for those who want to be their own boss and become rich. If you don't want to miss this important information, subscribe to my channel for free and turn on the notification bell. First of all, why do we rarely hear about how investing in gold can yield huge returns? In my view, gold is essentially a substitute for the dollar. In years when the dollar is strong, gold will be weak, but if the Fed kept printing money, the dollar should have completely lost its value. Why can it still maintain its hegemonic position? The reason is because the financial elite has found a way to manipulate the entire world. They tied the value of the dollar to a commodity that had real value. Then, even though the dollar itself has no value because it is tied to an important asset, it will always have value. This way, They can print as much money as they want, without fear of losing control. So which assets are really valuable? Every country that wants to develop needs oil. Because oil is the lifeblood of industry. But America is not an oil power. So what did they do? They looked on a map and found that Saudi Arabia was a major oil producer. The US used money and military power to force Saudi Arabia to become its junior, forcing the country to trade oil only in dollars. That means if you want to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, you are required to convert your currency into dollars first. But a junior like Saudi Arabia is not enough. The US continues to cause a series of wars in the Middle East, forcing most oil-exporting countries in the region to use dollars in oil transactions. Besides war, America also uses human rights tactics. They set up opposing factions, creating cultural and political conflicts. If a country wants to escape from US control, it will immediately be accused of human rights violations. If mild, they will be isolated from the international community. If severe, they will be overthrown or militarily attacked. The message is clear. Listen to me and you will get money. Go against me and you will suffer the consequences. So small countries have no choice but to join the US financial system to make money with them. Once they had made money, these countries were further enticed by US banks to invest in the US financial market with the promise of high returns. After receiving money from their juniors, American tycoons will use this money to lend to poor countries at exorbitant interest rates, turning them into financial slaves. Imagine you are the leader of a poor country. You want to develop your country, but you have no money, no oil, no industry. Then the American financiers will come along and say to you, "We can lend you money and we guarantee that other countries will sell you oil. You just have to pay your debts on time." Now you have only two paths to choose from. The first choice is to remain poor and oppressed by America. The second option is to accept this condition, betting on a life-changing opportunity. But in reality you don't have a choice because all other countries have accepted it. If you refuse, they will grow and you will fall behind. Your whole country accidentally becomes a junior of the American tycoons working for them. If you can't pay your debts, your country's most valuable assets will be seized by them. If you grow strong enough to pay off your debt, after collecting huge profits from you, they will start punishing your trade, blockade your economy while funding domestic opposition parties to cause trouble. Many people think that dollars are currency, but in fact it is just money. And currencies are goods and resources, such as houses, cars, even paying for pearl milk. The trick of American tycoons is to use money to exchange for currency. What does it mean? When you are forced to use dollars in transactions such as buying oil, you need to stockpile a large amount of dollars to pay for middle-class countries. This means you have to hold dollars in reserve to keep the exchange rate stable. But when you hoard $100 billion and leave it there, it's essentially just worthless pieces of paper. But in exchange for this waste paper, you must provide goods and resources of real value. In other words, you've traded your real assets for a pile of paper that America can print out at any time with just a few printers. You think it stops here? No. Faye and the American tycoons will continue to appear and say, "Do you want to make money? Actually, you don't need to keep that many dollars. You can use this $100 billion to buy US government bonds." They will continue to convince you. America is not going anywhere. US government bonds are the safest asset. You give me $100 billion. I will write you an IOU. This money will be kept with me for 10 years and after 10 years I will return it with interest. If you agree to buy $100 billion of 10-year US bonds immediately, the American tycoons will have $100 billion in cash. They will use this money to buy your country's resources and assets. This is the way to not spend a penny but still earn huge profits. What is the nature of this game? They borrow money from you to buy your assets while they themselves, without having to spend any capital. After 10 years they will pay back both the capital and interest. But how? By borrowing money from other countries to pay off old debts. That's how America stays rich. Remember this. Poor people are the kind of people who live in heaven but their money is in someone else's bank. What about rich people? They live in paradise but their debt is in the bank. America, the world's largest economy, has shown you that the rich are the ones driving Lamborghinis who borrow money from the banks that the poor put their money in. The U.S. Federal Reserve has borrowed money all over the world, taking the hard work of other countries for nothing but worthless pieces of paper. This is dollar hegemony, a system that turns the majority of the global population into financial slaves to work for them. How does this feel? It's like you thought you just deposited $1 million into a savings plan. But the fund manager tricked you into spending all of it on lottery tickets. In 2008, when the financial crisis broke out, American tycoons created an extremely high-risk financial product and sold it to the whole world. Then the system collapsed, causing $4 trillion to disappear without a trace. In any other country, this event would lead to a complete collapse, like the tulip bubble in Holland or the decline of the British Empire. But America is different. It only took them 2 years to recover. Why? Because they can print money 24/7 without limits, forcing the whole world to suffer the consequences. That printed money was pumped into domestic businesses to help them overcome the crisis. As the U.S. economy recovered, these companies used the profits they earned to pay back the fee. At this time, American tycoons continue to use that money to buy assets from other countries that have not yet recovered. The funniest thing is that these countries, even if angry, do not dare to protest, because they want to develop. They need oil. But to buy oil they have to use US dollars. As the Fed continues to print unlimited money, the dollars these countries hold will lose value and become nothing more than scrap paper. At this point, if they object, they will be listed by the US as human rights violators. So they can only smile and try to endure. But when they endure too long, they fall into exhaustion, have nothing left to eat and almost starve to death. At this time, the U.S. generously provided some food aid and called it humanitarian aid. But in reality it's just their way of keeping you alive, continuing to work to make money for them. And then you have to thank them for that. There is no other way in this world. The strong and the smart will be the ones to write the laws of heaven. This is a capitalist society where property is always in the hands of the elite. You cannot expect anyone to help you, because even your government can be a victim. Your assets are yours to protect. Now many countries, after being continuously plucked, have begun to succumb. Did you know? Over the past 3 years, pandemic and energy issues have pushed the United States into a serious public debt crisis. Let's understand it this way. GDP is the income of the US, while their public debt has reached 126% of GDP. These imbalanced figures have been seen in Argentina and many other countries. And as a result they have fallen into serious economic crises. So the countries that are lending money to the US are very worried. Now they wonder, if America keeps borrowing like this and one day they go bankrupt, will the money they owe me still be worth anything? We can see that the US has frozen a large amount of Russian assets abroad. And you may not know that among those frozen assets there is also a large amount of US government bonds. This action has startled many other countries. They wondered what was going on. If one day I stop cooperating with the US, will they freeze my bonds too? If the money can be returned without need, then it is too dangerous. I have to sell the US bonds I am holding immediately. This led to a wave of selling off US bonds. When countries repatriate their money, they initially planned to deposit it in US banks to earn interest from the Fed's rate hikes. But then Silicon Valley Bank went bankrupt, nearly wiping out their deposits. When they struggled to withdraw the money and send it to Switzerland, Credit Suisse immediately collapsed. So such a huge amount of money cannot be kept in storage because it will lose value. Nor can it be invested in high-risk assets such as oil or stocks. So what is the solution? There is only one way left. Rush to buy gold. How crazy is this gold rush? Let me tell you. Since 2022, central banks of many countries have been quietly buying large amounts of gold. Gold is being bought up in tons. In just over the past year, countries have purchased a total of 1.200 tons of gold, setting a record high in the past 55 years. Everyone knows that the amount of gold in the world is limited. For example, if the demand is only 100 gold blocks and countries have hoarded 80 blocks, then the remaining 20 blocks on the market will certainly become extremely scarce. That is why gold prices continue to rise. So the biggest question that many people are concerned about is whether the average person can take this opportunity to make their first money in life from gold. Many people have the impression that investing in gold brings very low returns but very high volatility. Over the past 100 years, gold's average annual return has been just 4.6%, well below the US stock index. At the same time, the price volatility of gold is up to 15.2%, much higher than the stock market. But is that really true? To understand the price of gold, we need to divide it into two phases. The first stage was before 1971, when gold was considered as currency. At that time, all countries held gold reserves as collateral. For example, if one country holds gold and another holds Japanese yen, how do you determine which currency is more valuable? How to calculate exchange rate? How to trade? The answer is that the country that holds more gold reserves has a more valuable currency. Because the ratio of gold reserves determines the value of the currency issued. This is the gold standard. At that time, the US was the country that held the most gold, so they declared that the dollar could be converted directly into gold. Other countries don't need to hoard gold anymore. Just holding dollars is enough. That was the first period of the gold standard, when gold was considered the world's common currency. However, since 1971, everything has changed as the whole world uses dollars. American capitalists declared, "None of you will exchange dollars for gold anyway. So we'll just abandon the gold standard." From then on, the dollar was no longer backed by gold, but existed solely on faith in the US government. And from that point on, gold lost its monetary function and became an asset like silver or other precious metals. Hearing this, you may not want to invest in gold even more, because gold used to be a world-recognized currency, but now it is just a common precious metal. It does not generate interest, like stocks, nor does it generate rental income, like real estate, so what reason is there to buy it? But if you look at the gold price trend seriously, you will see that before 1971, the gold price was almost unchanged. It is just a straight line, neither increasing nor decreasing. But after the gold standard was abolished in 1971, gold prices began to make a strong breakthrough. The reason is because when gold is still a currency, it is just a tool, so it cannot fluctuate too much. But as gold became a new asset class, it began to be speculated on and hoarded. And as confidence in the dollar has waned, gold prices have continued to rise. So if we really want to evaluate gold as an investment asset, we have to start from the time when gold became an investment. That is, after 1971. From 1971 to 2000, gold's average annual return was 6.8%. After entering the 21st century, from 2000 to 2025, the average annual return of gold exceeded 10%, even increasing to 50%. This figure is even higher than many other investment channels, including funds and stock indexes. I have said that I have always had the habit of hoarding gold. Not for investment, but because I followed the teachings in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad to consider gold as a safe haven asset. But after years of holding, I realized something interesting. At first I had no intention of selling gold because I like to hoard gold and real estate. My strategy has always been to have goods on hand, so I don't have to worry about hunger. But here some people will ask, if the average profit of gold in the past 23 years is more than 10% per year, then why do many people, especially women, lose money when buying gold? The reason is very simple. They do not buy gold bars or gold pieces, but buy jewelry. A gold necklace or bracelet used for weddings, no matter how beautiful, includes processing costs, dragon and phoenix patterns and other hidden fees. So as soon as you buy, it is a loss. Also, when we talk about an average return of 10% per year over the past 25 years, we are looking back in time to do the calculation. This does not mean that the profit is fixed at 10% every year. For example, if you lost 5% last year but made 25% this year, then in total over 2 years you earned 20%, which averages out to 10% per year. Do you understand? People who don't understand investing often think of investing as saving money or buying a financial product that guarantees a fixed annual return. But the reality of investing is always volatile. If in 2003, you spent $100 buying gold and held it for 10 years, by 2013 that amount would have become $450. Which is a 4.5-fold increase. An average of 16% per year. But if you bought gold in 2013 and sold it in early 2019, you would have lost about 1%. Conversely, if you bought gold in 2019 and sold it in 2020, after just 1 year you would have made a 20% profit. If you want to make quick money in a short period of time buying and selling continuously, that is called short-term trading or, to put it bluntly, speculation. And in speculation you can make a profit, but you can also lose heavily. But if you buy gold and hold it for 10 to 20 years, when you look back, you will see that your assets have increased many times over. However, I still do not sell gold, because the real value of gold only peaks during serious financial crises. When people jump off buildings or when wars break out. And even if those things don't happen in my lifetime, I'll still leave this gold to my children. I don't need to sell because its value continues to increase. Only when I really need money I will sell the gold, and then I will definitely make a profit. Furthermore, I believe that there is no insurance as safe as storing gold. In severe crises, insurance companies may go bankrupt. But if you own gold, it can help you move up a few social rungs from a common merchant to a nobleman. So for me, having money means I will continue to buy gold. I'd rather buy gold than buy too much insurance. But if you are the type of person who wants to make money quickly and feel that assets such as derivatives, stocks or Bitcoin are too risky, then I tell you that gold is also a relatively easy asset to grasp the trend and can help you make money quickly. You just need to understand one thing. The core value of gold is its ability to hide and preserve assets. As human demand for shelter increases, the price of gold will increase accordingly. Take a look at the gold market. The price rally started in August 2018, when the price was just around $1.100 an ounce. What happened then? It is the trade tensions between the US and China that have begun to escalate. Since then, the price of gold has been steadily increasing and by May 2020, had reached $1.455 an ounce. But in just the next 5 months, gold skyrocketed to an all-time high of $2,070.10. Just think what happened from month to month in 2020. Yes, the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, causing panic across the globe. But after August, as good news began to appear, people began to realize that the initial panic was somewhat overdone. At first, everyone thought this pandemic was incurable, but it turned out to be not as serious as they thought. Most people have been infected with the virus, are familiar with its existence, while vaccines are also being researched and developed. At the same time, a new president took office in the US and the market expected him to ease trade tensions. As a result, gold prices began to fall again by 2022, when the US Federal Reserve announced an interest rate hike. A large cash flow into the US caused the dollar to strengthen and gold prices to fall again in early 2025. When Trump took office and began imposing tariffs globally, tensions escalated and gold hit a new all-time high. Do you recognize the pattern behind gold's volatility? When the world is filled with good news, people feel confident about the future. They will prefer to hold cash and gold prices will fall. On the contrary, when the world is full of bad news, when you go out on the street and see everyone worried and complaining about the economic situation, the price of gold increases. Now, look at the reality of large corporations cutting staff, banks going bankrupt, trade wars escalating and many countries being financially manipulated by the US. All these factors push gold prices up. Not only that, more and more countries are abandoning dollar transactions and calling for dedollarization, causing the dollar to weaken, while gold continues to rise in price, reaching a record high of more than $3.100. In the world, the most important investment is investing in yourself. Your brain is your most valuable asset, because it can think of countless ways to make money. If you are, like me, before no capital, no relationships, no family background, even in debt for tuition, then what you need now is not to learn financial investment, but to find an automated business that helps you make money even while you sleep. Many people have to work, so they don't have time to invest or even the opportunity to learn. Their salaries are also limited, and begging won't change anything. Most importantly, the world is changing very quickly. If your industry cannot appear on the internet, it will be eliminated sooner or later. Look at the journalism industry. Existing for hundreds of years, it seems impossible to collapse. But now how many people still read newspapers? Everyone keeps up with the news on their phones. Street advertising used to be very popular. But now the platforms that make the most money from advertising are YouTube and personal media channels. Recently, the press reported the discovery of 40 gold mines, with a total volume of nearly 30 tons in Vietnam. Why do you think there is news at this time? Please share your comments below. Due to time constraints, we will stop here. I share free knowledge on how to become rich entrepreneurs and investors to achieve financial freedom. If you don't want to miss it, subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bell and share this video with everyone. I also send my best wishes to everyone who liked this video. I wish you all soon achieve financial freedom. If you find just 1 or 2 helpful quotes in today's content that improve your life, I'll be satisfied.